We need to discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs and Tampa Bay Lightning. What a fantastic rematch we're about to witness this playoff season. I cannot wait to watch this. We all know about Toronto and how they haven't been out of the first round in a while, and we know the Tampa Bay Lightning have gone to the Cup final the past 3 years and then won 2 of them. And this postseason has a lot on the line for both teams, especially for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't have their GM re-signed. Who knows what's going to happen if they don't get out of the first round? Can they? Let's find out. Okay, so I've got 5 categories here that I want to talk about. Based off these 5 categories, we'll be able to see who has the better chance. And this is obviously all in my thoughts. Obviously, I'm no fortune teller, so who knows what's going to happen, but I'm just a guy who watches hockey. Alright, so first category here, we have star quality. And just star quality means the superstars on their team and how well they can perform in the playoff settings. So, first of all, in Toronto, you got the big guys. You got Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares. You got Ryan O'Reilly who came over here too, and you got Morgan Riley. Those are 5 guys right there that, know how to play the game, play at a high level, and you got to watch out for them when they're on fire and when they're buzzing, because they are pretty lethal. Next, we're going over to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, you got Nikita Kucherov, who has hit 100 points. We got Braden Point, who's having a monster year. He's got 51 goals. This has to be the most under-the-radar season for a 50-goal scorer. Braden Point, he knows how to get it done in the playoffs, too. We can't not talk about their captain, Steven Stamkos, a known postseason performer. He's got that clutch factor. Another great piece to have. We got to go over to blue line too. You got Victor Hedman. He is obviously one of the best defensemen in the league. He plays up and down the ice. He can hit, he can shoot, he can pass. So lethal back there as well. You cannot mention superstars and not mention Andrei Vasilevsky. In most people's eyes, he's probably the #1 goaltender in the world, and he's been that for a couple of seasons now. We know what he likes to do when the Bolts have a chance to win a series or even just win a game. He can steal them games, so watch out for the cat in the playoffs. I'm going to give these 2 a rating. Star quality for Toronto, I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. And they've got the big boys, obviously, like I mentioned, but they don't have that premier goalie, even though Ilya Samsonov is a fantastic goalie this season. He's not a #1, #2 goalie in the world, right? And that's why I give the Tampa Bay Lightning an 8 out of 10, just because of their goalie. I think they're pretty even offense and defensive-wise, just skaters. The edge has to go to the Tampa Bay Lightning because they're netminder. This is a perfect segue into the next category, and that is goaltending. Andrei Vasilevsky, I kind of just mentioned him, but he's a known playoff performer as well, shuts it down. Let's see what he did this season. So this season, Andrei Vasilevsky, he finished the season with a .915 save percentage, 34-22 and 4. So still really good for Vasi. You can't really say anything about his regular season play because what matters most to him is the playoffs, so we'll have to see what happens for that. Switching over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, Ilya Samsonov, a .919 save percentage this year and a record of 27-10 and 5. Wow. Who knew Ilya Samsonov, coming over from Washington last year, would make such a difference and cement himself as the #1 goalie for this Toronto organization? So we should have a really good matchup here. 2 Russian goaltenders going at it. So for these ratings, I've got to give the Toronto Maple Leafs an 8 out of 10. Ilya Samsonov has played amazing this year. But on the other side, you can't beat the #1 goalie in the world for the past 3 years. You got Andrei Vasilevsky, so I'm giving them a 9 out of 10. Alright, so moving on, we're going to go over to power play. This season, the Toronto Maple Leafs finished 2nd in the league in the power play with a 26.0 percentage. If you get on the ice and see Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, oh man, scary thing, but we all know their power play tends to take a hit in the playoffs. We'll see if that comes to fruition again. It doesn't seem like it was falling off. It may be at the end of the season a tad, but you could tell they're still at it. They haven't just dropped off a cliff like past seasons, so I think they can get it done this postseason. Now, right behind the Maple Leafs are the Tampa Bay Lightning, 3rd in the NHL with a 25.4 percentage. Wow. Do not give anyone in this series a chance to go on the power play because they will make you pay. Alright, moving on. We got to talk about additions that each team made. Now, we already talked about in Toronto's case that Ilya Samsonov came over the summer and he's made a difference. But what about their deadline additions? They got They picked up Ryan O'Reilly, Jake McCabe, Sam Lafferty, Nola Chari, Luke Shen. There's Eric Gustafson. They got rid of some pieces, but they brought in some valuable pieces too. I think their bottom six is significantly better than any bottom six they put together in the past postseasons. So good for them. I really like Nola Chari. Nola Chari and Sam Lafferty will make that fourth line super tough to play against. They like to win puck races. They love to win battles. They're just a perfect fourth line for the playoffs. Also, you got to talk about Jake McCabe. They brought in some other defensemen too, but Jake McCabe has been their best defenseman they've brought in over the deadline. As a Blackhawks fan, I know this guy's really good defensively, and he can jump up into play, so I really like Jake McCabe. And their premier piece, they picked up Ryan O'Reilly. Really good in the playoffs. He's won a cup before. We'll have to see what he can do with all the really fast skaters that will be on this Toronto team with him. See if he can catch up. He did suffer an injury after he got traded, so he hasn't had the most time to acclimate to his new team, but I think he can get it done. Now going over to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they didn't really pick up as many good pieces as they could have. The Bolts lost more than they acquired. And at the beginning of the season, they lost Andre Palat, they lost Ryan McDonough, and you cannot replace those type of guys. And they brought in a few new pieces, but at the deadline, they really didn't make anything super significant. You brought in Tanner Jeannot, but he got injured. Is he even going to play? Who knows? And you brought in a fourth liner, Isamont, I don't know how you say his name, but I like how he plays. He's a good fourth liner. These deadline pieces weren't nearly enough to make up for what they lost. So, going over to the ratings, I give the Toronto Maple Leafs a 7 out of 10 for their additions, and the Tampa Bay Lightning a 5 out of 10. Pretty average. Moving on, we got to talk about playoff pedigree. I'm sorry, Leafs fans, I didn't want to do it, but it's going to be a category in every one of these prediction videos. Knowing how to play in the playoffs is significantly important. And the playoffs are not like the regular season. So having that playoff pedigree is super important. I'm sorry, I got to give the Toronto Maple Leafs a 3 out of 10 on this one. They did bring in a Stanley Cup winner in Ryan O'Reilly. Sam Lafferty made it pretty far when he was with the Penguins in the playoffs. Also got Nola Chari. He's been in the playoffs too. So they brought in some guys to help out their core. But since they haven't won a playoff round in a long time, I got to give them a 3 out of 10. And moving on to Tampa, man, you got to give them a 9 out of 10 for playoff pedigree. They made it to the Cup final 3 years in a row. And if they won that third in a row, they would be a 10 out of 10. You just can't stop the Lightning when they have their mindset, and they will roll you. We even saw that with the Rangers last year when they were playing in the conference finals. The Rangers went up 2-0, but the Lightning stuck together, stuck with it, came back and won the series, and they made it to the Cup final. So who knows what's going to happen this year. But those are my ratings for playoff pedigree. And final category here, we just got hockey. Who was playing a better stretch of hockey at the end of the regular season? And for Toronto, I'm giving them an 8 out of 10. That is with guys sitting. Not everyone would play all at once the past 2 weeks. But they still got it done. They still got their wins. And Ilya Samsonov has stepped up his game tremendously too. So he's a much better player on the road. They're just playing really good hockey right now. And going over to the Tampa Bay Lightning, I got to give them a 5 out of 10. They lost a bunch of games coming down the stretch that you would expect them to win. Even like with Vasilevsky in net, he would get lit up some nights and the defense just wasn't playing good. We might just have to say the Tampa Bay Lightning are waiting for the playoffs. That's kind of what happened last season too, where they were just playing decent, pretty good, but not Tampa Bay Lightning hockey. But once the playoffs hit, it just switched on. Who knows if that'll happen this season? It might make it an even better series if they do that. But those are the ratings, 8 out of 10 for Toronto and 5 out of 10 for Tampa. But who's going to win this series? This is the answer for the question you came here to see. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs do it this year. I really do. I just don't think the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing at Tampa Bay Lightning levels right now. And with their injuries and with the people that they lost, I don't know. I think this Toronto team is much better. It's probably the best team they've put together in a long time, and I think they could go pretty far in the playoffs this year. But let me know what you guys think. I'm going to have predictions for every playoff series going all the way to the Stanley Cup final, so stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you guys.